Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Happy Farm D podcast. My name is Chris Bakley, and I'm your host. Today's episode I find will be very helpful for any of you out there who are interested in possibly a role in the academia field of pharmacy. I know making any kind of transition in the field of pharmacy can seem very difficult, if not impossible at some times, especially if you're feeling stuck in your current role as a pharmacist. Today's pharmacist can definitely shed some light on making that transition and definitely provide some hope into what exactly some strategies are to get out of where you currently are and how she in fact was able to transition into a role in academia. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next guest, Miss Elizabeth St. Hello out there, and thank you for joining me on the Happy Farm D podcast. This is Chris Bakley, and I'm your host. Before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to make a special announcement to everyone out there. We are offering free access to a webinar for everyone out there that is interested. It is our Career Masterclass. This will primarily help focus on how to escape burnout, get your job offers regularly, and to finally take control of your career. Please feel free to sign up on our link to secure and register for a spot, and it is free. The link is thehappyfarmd.com/begin. Again, that is thehappyfarmd.com/begin. Feel free to check it out and sign up again for your free spot for this class. Thank you so much, guys, and let's go to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Elizabeth. If you just wanted to start with introducing yourself and a little bit about where you started and where you are today.
Sure. Well, my name is Liz St. I decided in third grade Elizabeth was a little bit too long to write.
I'll use Liz from now on.
And so I've been in pharmacy since I graduated in 2004. I'm not one of those people who knew that I wanted to do pharmacy forever. I discovered it along the way in college when I started realizing I was interested in healthcare. And then I was one of those crazy people who liked organic chemistry, and they said, maybe you should think about pharmacy. So I started pursuing pharmacy and fell in love. So I graduated in 2004. And at that time, residency was just kind of like a couple people did it. It was barely talked about. Most of us just got jobs right out of school. I just ended up getting a job at a employee-based pharmacy at a local casino because I live near two of the largest casinos in the world, actually.
Okay.
Fun fact. And it was in the basement of the employee parking lot, like the actual garage structure. Sounds a little sketchy now that I say it out loud, but so it was really interesting because it was just one subset of people with one insurance. And so it was a great way for me to kind of get my feet wet with patient care. And then I ended up converting over to one of the bigger chains and hoping that that would kind of increase my ability to impact more people with more variety. So I did that for a while, became a pharmacy manager, and I was pretty good at it. Problem was I didn't like it.
Yep.
And I ended up having the opportunity to pursue managing an independent pharmacy. So I'm like, okay, here we go, right? So now I'm in an independent pharmacy. I'll have some autonomy to do programs that, really excite me and see kind of the business side of things. And it was great. And we did a great job as a team. I managed to make this independent pharmacy, which for anyone who lives in this world, they know independence. It's hard to make good as an independent.
Yes.
And we ended up turning a profit, which was the perfect opportunity for the owners to sell it.
Okay.
So I worked myself right out of a job. And, that happens sometimes. Sometimes you get thrown a curveball and you have to kind of roll with it. So I ended up back at one of the larger chains, because I'm never one to burn bridges. So I went back to my roots there. And
you went back to the same chain or?
The same chain.
Okay. Gotcha.
But then I was offered a position with from one of my former classmates at a more specialized pharmacy where they really kind of key in on people who could use some extra assistance because they have complex mental health conditions that need some more coordinated care. So I did that for a while because again, I was thinking I like the patient care. I like interacting with people. The challenge is that sometimes you get into this place where you should like it, right?
Yep.
This is your career. You should like it. You should be happy with what you're doing. And there was just something about it that was just making me feel like there was something that was missing. And I was feeling kind of stuck. And that was actually right about the time when I saw the very first Happy PharmD Summit. And it made my wheels start turning of there is areas of pharmacy that I don't even know about. And there is areas of my own interest that I haven't even fully tapped. And so it just got me thinking that there might be something more out there for me, because there is this tricky balance, right? There are things that you're good at and there's things that you're passionate about.
Yep.
And the ideal job is the one where those two things collide. And I was in a job where I was really good at it, but I wasn't really passionate about it. So I had to figure out kind of how to tap into finding that blend. And it actually led me to, I got in the Happy PharmD Facebook group.
Okay.
Started connecting with a couple of people and spoke with Alex, who runs the Happy PharmD. And I spoke with him. I was talking about things that I was interested in. He's like, I have someone that I think that you should talk to based off of the things that you really enjoy. So he connected me with one of the other coaches within the Happy PharmD, Jackie Boyle. And because she had a lot, she was working in academia, which was something that was always intriguing to me. She was working in that kind of ambulatory care space, which again was something that was also near and dear to me. And so I started talking with her, and we spent it was a total of 12 weeks. We talked like once a week. And
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
that was really key for me to start to answer the questions for myself that I didn't even know I needed to ask. And that is, I think, a lot of what the key is of moving yourself out of being stuck, is feeling like you're taking those action steps that can get you to what your next step should be.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be different for everyone. And the great part about the coaching process for me was that it wasn't like she said, okay, now you need to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. That was not what it was at all. It was more about, I kind of felt like I was running on a treadmill, right? Like I was just going, but not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I kind of felt like what she did for me was she took me outside and she said, okay, so why don't we run this way? And then we would get to this place. And then she'd say, what do you think about, like, do you maybe want to take a left, or maybe you want to think about taking a right? And she just helped me kind of guide my own
Like you needed an outside
choices.
perspective.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And during that process, I ended up coming across a job posting at a local college of pharmacy. And it was speaking about needing a pharmacist who could help coordinate all of the experiential programming for students in the pharmacy curriculum. And it made me say, okay, that's actually something I could do. I think I'd probably be pretty good at that, because one of the things that I really feel passionate about is, and I did this through my health coaching, which is something that I did on the side as a pharmacist. And what I always felt like I was in talking with people who are dealing with chronic health conditions is helping people find what works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And also having a passion for the area of pharmacy and having it be what it can be. And so I'm like, what better place to start than with our next generation of pharmacists?
Absolutely. Yep.
So I applied, and thinking, how on earth am I going to do this? Because I have no experience in academia. I didn't even go to that school.
Yeah.
I'm not an alum.
Was the application, like, in terms of for people who are maybe interested in that type of position, getting out of retail or hospital or more of a academic role, did they require experience when you applied to it? Was that like one of the requirements, or?
No, you were required to be a pharmacist.
And that was about it.
And now, that being said, I knew that given the role, the fact that I had been a preceptor for pharmacy students was going to be a big part.
Okay.
I did also highlight, another little side thing that I had done where I had taught a pharmacy technician certification course for, when they want to do national certification, they have courses that
Gotcha.
take. So I did tweak my resume to highlight those aspects that I thought were particularly well suited for me to be a good candidate for this.
Okay.
But I also knew it was a reach. But I think that was the other thing that coaching helped for me was to get myself into the mindset of, you know what, I need to just own what I do and go for it and see what happens, because if you do not even try, the answer is automatically no.
That's true. Was it very easy for you to transition? Like, since you, I guess, kind of had a background in coaching yourself in a way, was it easy for you to be okay and open to, getting some help and asking someone to kind of, step in and guide your career path? Or was it kind of something that took you a while to be okay with doing?
Well, I think if you had asked me at different times in my career, it would have been different. However, I had been doing enough kind of soul searching for just to be a little bit, maybe overly dramatic soul searching, but I had been kind of exploring that idea of what on earth do I need to do. And so I was at a spot where I said, you know what, I'm ready to take on what that might be. And I got to test it out first, right? So I got to talk to her. The first time was just to let's get to know each other. Let's see if we blend well, if we, and so that I was able to decide kind of ahead of time, you know what, I like her vibe. I think that this is someone who I could be comfortable talking with.
Absolutely.
That being said, it's hard to sometimes really think about, what is it that I want? What is it that lights me up? What is it, when you ask those hard questions that you've often never thought to ask yourself, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say that it was easy from to do, but she helped kind of guide me through that process. So ultimately, and I was ready for it.
Okay.
I should say that.
Okay. I feel like I was in a very similar boat, and Alex asked me a bunch of questions that I really stumped me. I was like, you know what? I've never really thought of it that way. And I'll have to really, and it wasn't something where you can answer right away. It'd be like, think about it for a day, a week, and then, give me a good answer and then go from there, which I felt like it was very, very helpful. Like, definitely, absolutely. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. There's something about kind of a neutral third party, right? Who can suddenly kind of look at your situation and maybe turn on another light that you didn't realize there's a bulb in.
Yep.
Sorry, I like analogies. I don't know if you've
it's
caught
wonderful.
on to that.
It's wonderful. Absolutely, I appreciate it. I like it. So, I mean, so basically transitioning back, like with the coaching on your side. So then this role, how was it? Obviously, it was much different than what you were doing. So I guess walk us through a typical, once you got the role, obviously you got the job. So
I did get the job.
and I think tailoring your resume also to the job position you're applying to is a huge thing, very helpful, which I know Happy Pharmacy, obviously helps a lot.
And actually, Jackie was, not only did she help me with the resume and the cover letter, she also did do like a mock interview with me like face to face, like over video conference, because we don't live near each other. That was also very helpful. So I mean, she really did kind of help me along the way. But now that I'm in the role, it is extraordinarily different from what I was doing before. But it has, I'm now a year and a half in, and I could not be happier in what I'm doing. Every day is a little bit different. So for me, as an experiential education coordinator, I kind of wear a lot of different hats. So I am support for the preceptors, which includes coming up with different areas of development and ways that we can provide, because none of us as pharmacists were taught to be teachers, right? So, and that's what they are as preceptors. So thinking of ways that we kind of develop that, whether it be teaching them about feedback strategies or those sort of aspects, coming up with processes to simplify the process as much as we can for pharmacists, because we're mindful of the fact that preceptors, they have their regular job they're doing and then they're precepting. Another thing that is a big part is developing new relationships with new sites. And then a really gigantic part of my job is the support of the students. So I do that by visiting them at their site, making sure that the learning that should be happening is happening, even if that means kind of helping them work through a challenge that they're experiencing. It is talking with them about their career path, because, certainly with those students who I'm seeing in their final year of pharmacy school, It's now what's next. And given that I also have gone through my own, like, what's next parts of my career, that's one of the parts that I actually really enjoy, is talking with them about kind of how to navigate those next steps of their career. I also, with my background in the community setting, I do some group video discussions of students who are at community API sites all over the country, and in smaller group settings, to deep dive into particular scenarios, topics that can be challenging for preceptors to necessarily be able to spend a good lot of time in the community setting talking about, like pharmacy law, how to work up a patient in the community setting. What does that look like? How do we navigate that process, and practice manager scenarios? And so we get to kind of deep dive into those topics. And then I've also gotten the opportunity with time, now that they've known me and know what I can do, I've also gotten to spend some time in the classroom as well. So I am one of the faculty members that will run the case discussion based classes that go alongside the core curriculum of different disease states and organ systems. So that's yet another kind of piece of what I've been involved in. So that's just a sampling of kind of a fun day for me.
Gotcha. No, it's very nice also to get to do a variety of things and not be like compared to when you were in retail. I'm sure it was very monotonous. Even in the manager role, it's when you went from transitioning probably from a staff to manager was a little bit of a, difference, but it still becomes monotonous over time.
There are days that felt a little bit like Groundhog Day. I will say that.
Yeah. So, it sounds like it's quite a relief. And even the way you speak about it, I can tell like you truly have a lot of passion for it. Like seems like you definitely found, your niche in terms of career-wise and in pharmacy.
Oh, absolutely. And I also, when I think about even just conversations that I have with some of my students, like one the other day who is pursuing residency. And so we're just in that season where they're starting the application process. And she started to, when I met with her at her site, she said, I don't know if I can do this. Like, who am I to apply to a residency? And so it was a great opportunity for me to have kind of a conversation with her that I needed someone to have with me, which is, let's take a look at what you've done up to this point. Don't discount all of what you've accomplished by doing the compare game with someone else. Let's just focus on how great you are. And just having a day like that is just it's so huge. Or talking to a student who is really excited to go into the community setting and also is concerned about losing the aspect of helping people manage their medical conditions. I said, what is stopping you from helping to be the change that helps advance community pharmacy to the place where that's where people, they expect to have those conversations with you when they come in to pick up their medications? What's stopping you from having that just be what people know of you, and just kind of have that be a ripple effect throughout the community? So, it's just great to be able to kind of feed off of their energy. And
in a sense, it's giving back a lot. It's very rewarding, I'm sure, compared
hugely.
So I guess in terms of like to compare your quality of life when you were more on the retail side, you kind of just answered it, but in terms of overall, would you say like it's a huge improvement, like in terms of your daily life, schedule wise and just enjoyment? How would you describe the difference? And
Oh,
also from coaching as well, I guess.
yeah, I come home really excited about what I've done that day. I don't come home stressed. There are people who absolutely they thrive off of the energy that's in that environment. It is hard for me. I would take that home with me every day
Yep.
to the point where at one point my 9-year-old said to me, "Mom, I think you need a new job." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And he said, "You always seem mad at this job." So I removed the dagger in my heart and, and, that, and then I said, it's really time to kind of reassess. So I knew for now the difference is I can come home and I can talk to my now 15-year-old about this cool conversation that I had with a student, or this really exciting new site that we're trying to get on board, or show him this really fantastic new newsletter I created, or whatever it is. I now get to share my excitement with my family and not my stress, and it's like night and day.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
I can absolutely relate. Like when going through the coaching as well, I was pharmacy manager and retail side, and yeah, you were just pretty much it gets bad where you almost like where your family gets the heat from it when you're stressed, and they notice it. Like it's bad if it's one thing if it's you're just stressed, but it's more internal. But when it's even when your kids or your spouse can be like, hey, like I think it's time, like, look for something different. It's a game changer and quite an eye opener as well. Yeah. So I think that's what most people are looking for now, is trying to find something that is more meaningful and more enjoyable and what they went to school for, especially now with retail kind of turning more into more of a numbers game, more about profit. I feel like a lot of people are kind of losing that clinical side, or in terms of patient care side, that they really went to pharmacy school in the first place for.
Absolutely. And I feel like part of what now I get to do is hopefully help inspire our next generation of pharmacists to be that advocate for our profession, so that we can turn the numbers game into, okay, let's let automation do what it can do, and let's put ourselves at the forefront of making sure that patients are well cared for and optimizing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And so, being the change and being active in making that happen, whether it be with other pharmacists finding the career that lights them up, or getting those that are brand new colleagues to help kind of drive that as well, it's going to be huge.
Absolutely. And in terms of like with being in academia, again, obviously you have conversations with students about to graduate. But I guess with people in that role, or pharmacists who have already have been working professionally for years, or just a couple of years, and ready want something new, what would be your biggest recommendation in terms of if academia was a role they wanted to transition into? And I know you went through coaching and you also didn't have direct experience in terms of in academia, but what would be your biggest piece of advice for someone if they were your student that's about to graduate, or a pharmacist wanted to make a change, to make that change or transition into a new role?
I think the key is to be a lifelong learner. And I know we say that a lot, and I think it's very much true. That for me, I was one of those people who actually enjoyed pharmacy school. I know it's not everybody, but and so
and
I
organic chemistry. So.
and organic chemistry. Like I'm like a unicorn, I think. But I always felt like, oh man, I mean, if I could just be a professional student. But
I've heard
in
a lot of people say
reality,
that, actually.
in reality, it's just that I liked to learn. And so I just kept making sure that I was always at the top of my game. I was never going to allow myself to be in a place where I was working retail, and which is a important and valid profession, but I wasn't going to get in the place where I'm like, I'm working retail, but now it means I don't remember any of my clinical knowledge. Like, no, like I wanted to kind of stay at the top of my game always. So that meant I was getting certification in MTM. I was becoming a certified health coach so I could really hone my patient interviewing skills. And then it was also a matter of just being present to the opportunities that presented themselves, right? So if I was asked to teach the technician certification course, absolutely, sign me up. If I had the opportunity to be a mentor for students, absolutely, when can I do it? And just being open to what's out there and always being willing to learn what's new. And so when I started thinking more about the academia space, I started saying, okay, let's start looking at what do teaching strategies look like? How do I kind of create my own vision of what I would be as a teacher, like, and having that philosophy in place. And then just being willing to talk to people who are in an arena that you want to be in,
yep.
or who have expertise that you wish you had, or who you think might be able to kind of help guide you in a particular direction. Don't be afraid to talk to those people. And it doesn't always mean paying a coach to talk to you for 12 weeks.
True.
Sometimes it can just mean you're at a conference, let's say, and you see someone talk and they just really kind of, whatever they said just landed with you. Go and talk to them after. And this is coming from someone who, at my very core, I am like introvert, capital I.
I was going to say, giving a lecture would be very difficult for me.
Capital I.
I feel like okay speaking in front of people, but I still would get very anxious about that. So
oh, absolutely. But they can't see how fast your heart is beating. Fun fact.
True. That is true.
So, and so I think it's just remaining open and refusing to get to be in a point where you're like, well, I guess this is all there is, because empower yourself to make the change and take a step that can take you to that next place, and be willing and be open and willing to be surprised by what that next opportunity might be. Because when I first started talking with Jackie, the job that I'm in now is not the job I was talking to her about. It was just something that evolved over time.
Well, that's the best thing though too.
Yeah.
Like in terms of you may go in expecting one thing, and then all of a sudden you have a revelation. You're like, oh my God, like this is what I meant to do. So you never know.
Absolutely. So that would be, just to kind of sum it up. And I'm not very succinct, but to sum up the advice that I would give is be open to learning, be open to opportunities, and don't allow yourself to stay in a place where you think that's all there is.
No, I think that's wonderful advice. I feel like you hit the nail on the head, because a lot of, like, I was in the same boat and you were too, like just feeling stuck. Like you're just not sure, like, you're like, I could put up with it, but do I want to put up with it? Like, and that's, if that's how your job feels or your career, you don't want to be there, forever. You want to find something that makes you truly happy and you feel like you're giving back and making a difference every day. And
absolutely,
it sounds for sure that you found that. And I want to thank you so much for, meeting with me today, and, some great advice, like, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of people are very interested in getting into the academia role in pharmacy. And it's something that a lot of people probably don't even consider, to be honest. That is a very open opportunity for pharmacists to make a huge difference and in a career path to find that could be long-term. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time. I really
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure and honor to be here.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to thank our guest again, Miss Liz St. Louis, for meeting with us today. A lot of great information from today's episode. Not only if you're interested in the academia role, but also just advice in terms of career-wise and not being afraid to ask for help and being willing to advance your career and open to, certain possibilities where you may go into thinking, hey, I want to do this field of pharmacy or this role, and then after speaking with someone or considering different options and weighing the benefits and the cons, you realize, hey, like, honestly, we might want to do something completely different than the path or direction that you originally thought you were going in. But I thought Liz really pointed out a few really important things that, to be open to learning, open to different opportunities, and really do not allow yourself to stay in a place where you think that's all there is, which is absolutely true. We all feel, there's a lot of us out there, that myself included, not too long ago, that just felt stuck. And I feel like it's maybe academia is where potentially you never thought of that as a possibility in pharmacy, and it's an excellent choice, and great way to give back and to also feel like you're making a difference, and to also improve your knowledge in the field of pharmacy, and to also find a career path that not only gives you joy in your career, but also in your personal life and family life. But I wanted to thank you again so much for listening today. Please check us out on the Happy PharmD. We have some awesome free material, and also if you are interested in finding a coach, we are also able to provide that as well, and some information to speak with you about that. We are more than happy to do that. Thank you so much for listening today on the Happy PharmD podcast, and we'll see you next time.